Well, thank you very much indeed for your company. It's 7:30. I'm here with you until 10 o'clock. Lots of messages coming in. Debbie Bawley says, David, I am a Conservative Party member and I'll be voting for Liz Truss. I believe she is more Conservative than Rishi and appeals more to grassroots Conservatives and the electorate. Thank you very much indeed. This is from James talking about the support from the government. I'm self-employed. I own a small business. I was able to take some grants during the pandemic and luckily I was able to restructure my work as the grants only covered about 20% of my income. My issue is how we've been treated since and how banks refuse to accept COVID grants as income on tax returns against borrowing. Do they? Despite promises, they wouldn't be penalised. It's a brilliant point. HH says, hi David, 1 million self-employed got nothing, but meanwhile fraudsters got billions. Sunak's record on furlough is abysmal. Thank you very much indeed. This was going back to your point actually about bigotry. There's no name on it, but it says, I got offered nursery nurse, secretary or pharmacist at a careers lesson. Engineering or anything like that wasn't mentioned because I was a girl. Lots of unconscious and conscious bigotry about 40 years ago and still to this day.
Absolutely.
It's very true, isn't it?
It is indeed. As I said, I was written off at 13.
That's appalling.
And told that, I could be a nanny, but I couldn't be a journalist. Apparently I looked too ethnic. I was too Yorkshire. I was from the wrong area. And fortunately for me, I had fantastic mentors that were editors and they saw something in me, and had it not been for those mentors, I have no idea.
I mean, that is a travesty, isn't it? And it just shows you need the right people to guide you and to push you and to say, and actually to give you confidence.
Absolutely.
I wanted to be a doctor at 11, told my teachers, and I got a thing saying makeup artist. It was even, you had to fill out this sort of form and it tests all your skills and it said, makeup artist. It's something like you're not intelligent enough to be a doctor or something like that.
That's alarming.
It was a bit much. And I wonder how much of that was because, again, I'm a woman.
Yeah.
And this was about 30-something years ago.
You don't look old enough. Let's move to your next story now. Do we have to? But yes, talk about
We do have to, so Colleen...
I know you both like this story.
So Colleen has won her libel case, which was taken with Rebekah, who had said that she had libelled her in this whack-a-thon case. So what happened was Colleen was putting out message on her social media feed, and then she was wondering how it was being fed to the media. So then she took off all these different people and left Rebekah as the only person who could get these messages on her social media feed. And then she realised it had to be Rebekah. And then Rebekah took her to the High Court and lost. And then the judge said that Colleen was an honest witness. And so what's going to happen to Rebekah is this is probably going to hurt her brand because she's going to be seen as untruthful.
And her wallet.
Absolutely.
I mean, the damages are very significant. I mean, also, just in terms of the way this played out, I mean, clearly it was a great piece of detective work, wasn't it? I mean, if nothing else. And of course, but my understanding is also that Vardy has to pay about 80% of these costs, but I think the Rooneys have to pay about 20% of these costs. And they're not insignificant.
No, they're not at all. That is so true.
I mean, what's your feeling? Do you think this should have gone to court?
I don't think it should have gone to court, actually, to be fair. I just thought it was quite amusing. A bit of a light story in a really troublesome world.
Well, indeed. What's in the Mirror? I think more about the Conservative Party leadership campaign.
So the Mirror is saying that Rishi Sunak is struggling to keep his nerve, and this was with his latest U-turn. But what I've seen in the competition so far to be leader is he doesn't seem to be connecting with the public as such. So we've got the highest tax burden since the Second World War. He's always going to be seen as the person who stabbed Boris Johnson in the back. I don't think he should have resigned. I think the country didn't need this at this moment in time. We needed to have a leader to try and get us out of this troubling waters after COVID and also with the war in Ukraine. And also the national insurance threshold, he said it was progressive, but he didn't realise that it was hurting some of the poorest people in the country. He just seems to be out of touch, and he keeps talking about net zero, but he's not talking about Sri Lanka, who actually followed the net zero agenda, and now look what's happened to Sri Lanka. People are starving, the country's up in chaos. So he doesn't seem to be connecting. He's supposed to be a nice person, but he's not connecting with the public.
That's really interesting. And how does net zero play out in places like Leeds? I can imagine that many people, and certainly many of our viewers, are saying, in theory, it's a great idea. We can't afford it in the short term. Let's lose it. Let's start fracking. Let's get cheap energy. People are hurting and they're hungry.
People are definitely hurting. There's been a lot of talk about fracking. People are wanting to at least explore that as an alternative to try and get their fuel bills down. But people are not really wanting to talk about net zero. They're worried about their bills. They're worried about the cost of living crisis. There's a bigger picture of what people are really struggling with in Yorkshire and throughout the country, and him talking about net zero is not helping. People want to hear about the bread and butter issues, things that are going to help them to get through the winter and to actually not go to food banks. What's alarmed me is that more and more people in my county and throughout the country that are working are going to food banks. I read recently of a teacher going to the same food bank as her pupils' parents were going to. Nurses are going to food banks as well. And what's even more interesting is in the leafier suburbs where they've never had this issue, you're seeing food banks creeping in. You're seeing more and more people in what were leafy suburbs going to the CAB. The CAB said they've seen a rise in that. And he's not looking at those issues.
No. I think you're absolutely right. It also plays well into your next story in the Star. That's about the numbers of people living on streets in the capital.
So there's about an estimate of 3,000 people living on the streets of London that are rough sleepers. And what really annoys me is I was talking to a soldier who was living on the street in Yorkshire, and then 2 streets from where I was talking to him was a hotel that had illegal refugees living there, and we pay 120 million to Rwanda for illegal aliens that are coming over in the small boats, and they're getting put up in hotels. And yet we've got our own people sleeping on the streets, which I find quite alarming. And then when COVID struck, we were able to put the rough sleepers in the hotel and then put them back onto the street. I can't get my head around that. I just find it really shocking. And I've noticed there's more and more young people that are living on the streets in Yorkshire. You're literally walking past them. And I think they need to solve this issue.
Georgie, what's your feeling on that? I mean, I'm starting to see far more rough sleepers in London, in well-heeled parts of London as well.
Yeah, I used to work at a food bank in Fulham, and you see more and more people coming in getting help talking about the food banks, but homelessness is an absolute blot on our society. My concern, I guess, with immigrants, I suppose, coming over is, well, what do you do with people? I mean, I would not want to release people to go out and to have more people homelessness. I don't see that they are. I don't want to conflate the two issues. I think they should be dealt with independently and separately, but I totally understand people's concerns saying, why have we got so many rough sleepers? And it is an absolutely horrendous situation. I cannot believe we live in a society as we do.
And of course,
we have that.
And it is very complex. A lot of these people
100%.
come out of the military, there's no support, people turn to drugs and alcohol.
Yep.
And as a doctor, I've worked in that, and it is very difficult sometimes to get people off those. And also people are proud, and they don't want support and help, and I completely get that too.
Yeah.
And it is so complicated. Very quickly, Ben Wallace has put the knife in, hasn't he?
He has, absolutely. I like the fact that he said he's backing Liz because she's authentic and she says what she means and she means what she says. So that's kind of a bit of a knife in there.
There's a great quote that came from a Tory source saying that Rishi Sunak is calm and smiling on the outside, but there is an angry and arrogant man waiting to break out.
Wow.
I mean, so seriously, the knives are out here, aren't they?
They certainly are.
The Conservative Party. It's absolutely extraordinary. I don't understand why they've even gone to these debates. I just think airing your dirty laundry in public. I mean, let's be honest, they've been doing that for for 3 months job
And
already.
there's another month of this to go.
Oh,
I mean,
there is.
it is extraordinary. And I've asked this question multiple times. Why are we televising it when, as you said at the beginning, 150,000 people vote on this, and yet the rest of the country is subjected to it? Now, of course, many people say, well, that's because the person who wins will be the next Prime Minister. But I don't know. Do people in Yorkshire want to know the minutiae of these debates?
I think a lot of people have said that they're concerned with the blue on blue attack, but you do want to see who your next lead is going to be. You want to get the measure of the man or the woman just to see what they're made of. Are they talking to you? Can you connect with them? Because you're going to have to vote for them at some point. So people are interested.
Indeed. Well, thank you so much for coming in. It's been a great pleasure to have you here. That's Dawn Maria Francis, Editor-in-Chief of Yorkshire Women's Life. And I need to go and visit Yorkshire, obviously, very soon. I've forgotten. I haven't been for ages. But thank you very much indeed. After the break, we'll be meeting Tom Clayton. He's our TalkSport reporter. It's been a busy time in sport. Find out more after this break. This is TalkTV.